In this video, we will be taking a look at a basic installation of Pano Gateway version 6.0 on Windows Server 2008 R2. Pano Gateway is a plugin that gets installed on Windows Server 2008 R2, leveraging remote desktop gateway services to provide users with a secure gateway access via RDP over HTTPS SSL to Windows XP and Windows 7 virtual machines running in a data center. Pano Gateway installation requirements. Virtual infrastructure requirements require an existing VMware, Citrix, Microsoft Hyper-V virtual infrastructure supporting 64-bit processor architecture. A Windows Server 2008 R2 standard, foundation, enterprise, or data center operating system. Windows XP 32-bit, Windows 7 32 or 64-bit virtual machines. Pano system for VDI, software version 6.0. Optional RSA two-factor authentication supported for Pano Remote connections. Client-side requirements. A serialized, recommended, or non-serialized Pano Remote USB key. A Windows XP 32-bit or newer PC or laptop running Microsoft RDP client version 6.1 or newer that has internet access. Step 1. Install Windows Server 2008 R2. This can be a physical or virtual machine. Panologic's focus is to centralize the infrastructure in the data center. In this video, Windows Server 2008 R2 will be provisioned as a virtual machine in VMware vSphere 5. Step 2. Install virtual infrastructure tools with a complete installation applicable to your environment. This process will require a restart of the virtual machine. Step 3. Assign a static IPv4 address to the virtual machine's network adapter and apply all operating system updates. Please note that in this basic deployment, the intention is to place the Windows Server 2008 R2 virtual machine in a DMZ. The Pano Gateway security architecture does not require this virtual machine to be joined to a domain and is recommended to remain in a work group to prevent any unnecessary exposure of corporate information outside of the internally managed network. Step 4. Install Windows Server 2008 R2 RD Gateway and Web Server IIS roles with ASP.NET Role Service. Now that Windows Server 2008 R2 is fully patched and verified that the .NET 4 framework is installed, open Server Manager and select the Roles node. Select the Add Roles link in the right window pane to open the Add Roles wizard. Select the Next button in the Add Roles wizard to begin. Select the checkboxes for Remote Desktop Services and Web Server IIS, then select the Next button. Select the Next button to begin the installation of Remote Desktop Services role. Select the Remote Desktop Gateway checkbox, followed by the Add Required Role Services button, then select the Next button to proceed. Remote Desktop Gateway SSL Certificate Requirements. On the RD Gateway, self-sign, internally managed, or third-party certificate authority domain, domain wildcard, and SAN certificates are supported. Self-signed, internally managed, or third-party CA domain certificates CN name must match the FQDN name or DNS name that the client will use to connect to the RD Gateway. The SSL certificate is required to be a computer certificate intended for server authentication, has a corresponding private key, and has not expired. SSL certificates on the client side must be trusted. If using a self-signed SSL certificate, the end user will be prompted one time per unique endpoint client as to whether they want to accept the certificate. The end user must view the certificate, then install the certificate on the local computer's Trusted Root Certification Authority store. For now, I will select the Choose a Certificate for SSL Encryption Later radio button followed by the Next button. Select the Next button to create the required authorization policies for the RD Gateway now. Select the Next button for the user groups that can connect through the RD Gateway. This group will be modified later. Select the Next button to create the RD CAP or Connection Authorization Policy. Select the Allow Users to Connect to Any Computer on the Network radio button followed by the Next button. Select the Next button to enable a Network Policy and Access Services role. Select the Next button to enable a Local Policy Server. Select the Next button to install the Web Server IIS role. Select the ASP.NET checkbox followed by the Add Required Role Services button, then select the Next button. Select the Install button to begin the installation of the selected roles and applicable role services. This may take some time to complete depending on your infrastructure resources. When finished, you should see an installation succeeded message for each of the roles and can select the Close button to close the Add Roles wizard window. While not required, it is recommended to restart Windows Server 2008 R2. Verify that the Network Policy Server, Remote Desktop Gateway, and Web Server IIS roles are installed with the ASP.NET Role Service in the Server Manager Roles node. Step 5. Download and install Pano Gateway software. Open a web browser and go to http://download.panologic.com. Select the Download Pano System for VDI 6.0.2 button. Complete the download registration form, then select the Save and Continue button. Review and accept the EULA agreement. Select the Pano Gateway /Remote tab. Download the Pano Gateway 6.0.0.zip and, if applicable, the Pano Remote 6.0.0.zip files. Open the Pano Gateway 6.0.0.zip file, then run the Pano Gateway 6.0.0 installer using the local computer's administrator account. Select the Next button to start the Pano Gateway installer. Review, then select the I accept the terms in the license agreement checkbox followed by the Next button. By default, the Pano Gateway installer creates 50 Pano Gateway users that will be used for the Pano Gateway connections. If required, change the number of Pano Gateway user accounts to be created for your deployment, then select the Next button. Select the Install button to begin the Pano Gateway installation. Once successfully completed, select the Finish button to close the Pano Gateway installation wizard. Open Control Panel, uninstall a program, and verify that Pano Gateway application is showing. In Server Manager, expand the Configuration node, Local Users and Groups, Users folder, and verify that the Pano Gateway users have been successfully created. Select the Groups folder and verify that the Pano Gateway group has been successfully created. The Pano Gateway users will be part of this group. Expand the Roles node, Remote Desktop Services, RD Gateway Manager. Right-click on the Pano Gateway server and select Properties. Select the SSL Certificate tab in the Properties window. If using a self-signed certificate, select the Create and Import Certificate button. Otherwise, import your domain, wildcard, or SAN certificate. For self-signed or non-wildcard domain certificates, be sure that the certificate's CN name is a fully qualified domain name that users will connect to the Pano Gateway with. Select the OK button to proceed. If using a self-signed SSL certificate, the certificate should have been created successfully. Select the OK button to acknowledge this to proceed. Apply the settings and verify the SSL certificates issued to, issued by, and expiration date. Then select the OK button to proceed. Expand the Policies folder. Select the Connection Authorization Policies folder. Right-click on the TSCAP policy and select Properties. Select the Requirements tab in the TSCAP Properties window. If required, remove the built-in administrators from their user group membership. Select the Add Group button. Enter the local computer's Pano Gateway group, then select the OK button. Verify that the Device Redirection tab has the Enable Device Redirection for all client devices radio button selected. Select the Apply OK buttons to close the TSCAP Policies window. Select the Resource Authorizations Policies folder. Right-click on the TSWrap policy and select Properties. Select the Users Group tab in the TSWrap Properties window. If required, remove the built-in Administrators User Group from the TSWrap policy. Select the Add button to the Add Local Computers Pano Gateway group to the TSWrap User Group policies. Select the OK, Apply, and OK buttons to apply the settings to close the TSWrap Properties window. Open Windows Explorer and go to C, initpub Pano Gateway folder that would have been created with the Pano Gateway installer. Open the web config file to edit the file. Any text editor can be used. There are two values that need to be modified in this file, including: number 1, panomanager.mydomain.com should be changed to the IP address or DNS of your Pano controller. If multiple Pano controllers are deployed in a group and failover configuration, use the IP address or DNS name of your Pano controller virtual address. Number 2, tsgw.mydomain.com should be changed to the external fully qualified domain server name that users will use to connect to the gateway. For self-signed and non-wildcard domain certificates, this value should match the SSL certificate CN name. Save and close the web.config file. In Server Manager, select Services under the Configuration node. Right-click and restart World Wide Web Publishing Service. This should also prompt to restart the Remote Desktop Gateway service. select the Yes button to restart both services. Step 6. Configure remote client configuration in Pano Controller. Open a web browser and go to Pano Controller's web administration page. Log in using Pano Controller's root or admin credentials, or a directory service account if previously configured. Select the Clients tab, Settings button, Remote Client Configuration option. Select the preferred Pano Remote USB key registration option in the Auto Registration Mode drop-down box. Registration from anywhere allows Pano Remote USB keys to automatically be registered when connected to Pano Controller from within and outside the corporate network. Registration from LAN requires a Pano Remote USB key to be connected to a computer within the corporate LAN environment on the first connection attempt for registration purposes. The Pano Remote USB key can be used within or outside of the corporate network after a successful registration. Disallow auto registration will require a Pano administrator to manually add the client and Pano Controller prior to issuing the Pano Remote USB key to end users. Legacy Pano Remote options are available for older, non-serialized Pano Remote USB keys. If integrating RSA Secure ID two-factor authentication options, select the checkbox to enable RSA to be used with Pano Remote connections. Select the Set Configuration button when completed to save the settings. Serialized Pano Remote USB keys will show up in Pano Controller's Clients tab once they are successfully registered. Step 7. Configure DNS for Windows Server 2008 R2 RD Gateway and open firewall ports for Pano Remote connections. For DNS, external DNS, fully qualified domain name should match the RD Gateway's SSL, CN, or certificate name for self-signed, internally managed, and non-wildcard domain certificates, as well as the Pano Gateway's address configured in C, initpub, Pano Gateway, web.config. Firewall requirements. The external DNS or fully qualified domain name routes traffic from ports 443 and port 80 from the Internet through the Internet-facing perimeter firewall to the Windows Server 2008 R2 RD Gateway or Pano Gateway server. Once a session is established successfully, port 443 is used exclusively between the gateway and the endpoint with encrypted communications. Port 3389 is open from the gateway to the corporate perimeter firewall to the infrastructure for RDP access to the VMs. Encryption layers enabled on communications at the gateway before going to the endpoint. VMs should have firewall ports open for a remote desktop and optionally remote desktop remote FX. User accounts may need to be added to the remote desktop users group. Step 8. Test Pano Remote connections through Pano Gateway. Connect a Pano Remote USB key to an Internet-connected Windows XP or newer PC or laptop. Open Windows Explorer and select the Pano Remote USB key. Right-click on the panoremote.exe file, select Properties. Select the Details tab in the Pano Remote Properties window. Verify the panoremote.exe version. If required, upgrade. Double-click on the panoremote.exe file to launch the Pano Remote application. Enter the external DNS or FQDN in the Pano Remote server text box. Select the Connect button or press the Enter key. If prompted to accept a self-signed SSL certificate, select the View Certificate button. Verify the SSL certificate's issued to, issued by, and validation date, then select the Install Certificate button. Select the Next button in the Certificate Import Wizard. Select the Place Certificate in the Following Store Radio button, then select the Browse button. Select the Trusted Root Certification Authorities folder, then select the OK button. Select the Next button, then select the Finish button. Select the Yes button in the Security Warning window. The SSL certificate should import successfully. Select the OK, OK, and Yes buttons to proceed. Serialized Pano Remote keys should be validated to allow Pano Remote connections. Enter user credentials in the relative text boxes. Select the Display drop-down box for supported Pano Remote display resolutions. If required to select which DVM collection to log into, select the Options button. Select the DVM collection from the Desktop drop-down box. If configured, desktop controls are available in the Select an Action drop-down box. Select the Login button to proceed to log into the virtual machine. Pano Controller shows the user logging into the virtual machine. A Pano Remote options bar is available for minimizing, maximizing, and closing Pano Remote connections. Windows Server 2008 R2 RD Gateway Manager's monitoring folder will register and log active RD Gateway connections with the specified users, endpoint clients, and VMs that the user is connected to. If you have questions or would like to learn more about PanoLogic's feature-rich product portfolio, please feel free to contact us anytime for additional information. For additional video requests on product demonstrations and technical walkthroughs, please submit a request to videos@panologic.com. This concludes this presentation on how to install Pano Gateway version 6.0.0 on Windows Server 2008 R2. We hope that you found this video to be informative and helps you to successfully deploy Pano Gateway. PanoLogic appreciates you taking the time to watch this video, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.